The starward Hope drifted through the cold darkness of space, its engines humming softly as the ship moved toward coordinates that made every sensor on board flash with warnings. Captain Laura stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the that showed nothing but empty blackness ahead. She was a woman in her late 40s with gray streaks in her brown hair and lines on her face that told stories of difficult decisions. She had commanded this ship for 12 years, and in all that time, she had never seen her crew look so nervous. The warning had come 3 hours ago. A diplomatic vessel had appeared out of nowhere, its sleek silver hull cutting across their path like a blade. There were ancient beings, tall and thin with skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed with soft blue light. They had been traveling the stars for thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. When they spoke, other species listened. Ambassador stood on the now, his image flickering slightly as the transmission fought against some kind of interference. His voice was calm, but carried an edge of something that Laura recognized as fear. Captain said, "You must understand. Sector Null is forbidden to all species by laws older than my civilization. Every ship that has entered that region of space has been destroyed. We have lost thousands of vessels over 10,000 years. The hegemony have lost an entire battle fleet. The singing minds of Velar sent their greatest explorer, and she was never seen again. No one returns from the Forbidden Zone." Laura glanced at her first officer, Daniel, who stood beside her with his arms crossed. Daniel was a careful man, the kind who checked every system 3 times before trusting it. His dark eyes showed concern, but he gave her a small nod. He would support whatever she decided. "Ambassador," Laura said, "we picked up a distress signal coming from near the boundary. We have a duty to investigate." "The signal is a trap," replied, "or perhaps a ghost. The zone is full of echoes from dead ships. Whatever called to you is already gone. Please, Captain, turn your ship around. The Galactic Council values humanity. We do not wish to lose you to the silence." The transmission ended and the bridge fell quiet. Laura turned to face her crew. Price, her chief science officer, was bent over her console with her red hair falling across her face. Was young, barely 30, but she had a mind that could solve puzzles no one else could even see. Shaw sat at navigation, his fingers resting on the controls with the steadiness of a man who had guided ships through asteroid fields and solar storms. Tyler Grant, the youngest of them all, monitored communications with wide eyes that showed both fear and excitement. Laura said, "What do your sensors tell you?" Looked up and there was something strange in her expression. "Captain, I have been scanning the Forbidden Zone since the first contacted us. There is definitely some kind of energy field inside, something that disrupts technology. That matches what the ambassador said about ships being disabled." She paused and took a breath. "But there is something else. Deep inside the zone, I am detecting another energy signature. It is faint, but it is definitely there." "Alien technology?" Daniel asked. "No, sir," shook her head slowly. "That is what I cannot explain. The signature matches old Earth technology, very old. I compared it to historical records in our database." She looked directly at Laura. "Captain, it matches the engine signatures of the first human colony ships, the ones that launched 300 years ago and vanished without a trace." The words hung in the air like smoke. Everyone on the bridge knew the story. In the early days of human space exploration, before they made contact with the Galactic Council, humanity had sent out dozens of colony ships to find new worlds. Most of them reached their destinations and founded the colonies that now made up the Human Federation. But 7 ships had simply disappeared. They jumped into hyperspace and never came out. For 3 centuries, no one knew what happened to them. They became legends, ghost ships that parents told their children about. Tyler spoke up from his station. "Captain, the distress signal just stopped. It was broadcasting for 6 hours straight and now it is gone, like someone turned it off." "Or something," muttered. Laura walked to and stared at the darkness ahead. Somewhere in that forbidden space, there might be humans who had been lost for 300 years. They might be dead. They might be trapped. They might need help. And she was the only one close enough to find out. "Daniel," she said without turning around, "what do you think?" Daniel was quiet for a moment. "I think they are right to be afraid. I think there is something in that zone that has killed a lot of ships and a lot of people, and I think we would be fools to ignore 10,000 years of warnings." He paused. "But I also think that if there is even a small chance that our people are out there, we have to try. That is what humans do." Laura nodded slowly. She turned to face her crew again and saw the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. They were scared, all of them, but they were not going to run away. "Set a course for the energy signature," she ordered. "We enter the forbidden zone in 1 hour. Everyone prepare your stations for possible system failures. If our technology starts to shut down, I want backup plans for our backup plans." The crew moved to obey, and the starward Hope turned its nose toward the darkness. Behind them, the ship hung in space, watching them go. Ambassador did not try to contact them again. He had given his warning. Now all he could do was wait and hope that these strange, stubborn humans would prove everyone wrong. As the ship crossed the invisible boundary into Sector Null, Laura felt a chill run down her spine. The stars ahead seemed dimmer somehow, as if the light itself was afraid to enter this place. She thought about all the ships that had come before, all the explorers and warriors and scientists who had tried to solve the mystery of the Forbidden Zone. None of them had succeeded. None of them had returned. But they were not human, Laura told herself. They did not have 300 years of lost brothers and sisters waiting for them in the dark. They did not have a reason to be brave. She sat down in her captain's chair and gripped the armrests tightly. Whatever was waiting for them in the Forbidden Zone, she was going to find it, and she was going to bring her people home. The Starward Hope had been traveling through the Forbidden Zone for 16 hours when they found the first wreckage. Saw it on his navigation screen first, a massive shape drifting in the darkness ahead. He adjusted their course to pass close by, and when the ship's lights illuminated the wreck, everyone on the bridge fell silent. It was a warship, one of the huge battle cruisers that the hegemony used to conquer star systems. The ship was at least twice the size of the Starward Hope, covered in armor plating and weapons that could destroy a small moon. But now it floated dead in space, its hull dark and cold. There were no lights, no power readings, no signs of life. It was just a shell, an empty tomb drifting forever in the void. "No damage to the hull," reported from her station. "No weapons fire, no explosions, no breaches. It is like the ship just stopped working." "How long has it been here?" Laura asked. "Based on the decay of certain materials, I would estimate about 800 years. They passed the ship and found more wreckage beyond. A science vessel with elegant curves and delicate sensors. A hegemony transport filled with cargo that would never reach its destination. Ships from species that Laura did not recognize, designs that might have been ancient when humanity was still learning to walk upright. All of them showed the same pattern. No battle damage, no signs of attack. They had simply died. Daniel stood beside Laura's chair, his face grim. "Whatever is in this zone does not fight. It just drains the life out of everything that enters." "The energy field," said. "I have been monitoring our own power levels. We are losing energy at a slow but steady rate. Our reactors are still producing power, but something is pulling it away, like a leak we cannot find. At this rate, we have maybe 70 hours before our systems start failing." Laura did the math in her head. They needed at least 20 hours to reach the energy signature and 20 hours to get back out. That left them very little room for error. One wrong turn, one unexpected delay, and they would join the graveyard of dead ships around them. "Tyler," she said, "any luck with those transmissions you picked up earlier?" Tyler had been working at his station for hours, trying to clean up the strange signals he had detected when they first entered the zone. He looked up with tired eyes but also with excitement. "Yes, Captain. I finally managed to filter out the interference. The transmissions are definitely human, old human, speaking a dialect of English that has not been used for about 300 years. He pressed a button, and a voice filled the bridge. The recording was scratchy and broken, but the words were clear enough. "If you are human, come home. If you are not, turn back. The gate is not for you." The message repeated over and over, an endless loop that had probably been playing for centuries. "The gate," Daniel repeated. "What gate?" "I do not know," Laura said, "but we are going to find out." They pushed deeper into the Forbidden Zone, following the energy signature that grew stronger with every passing hour. The darkness around them seemed to thicken, and the stars that had been visible when they entered were now completely gone. They were alone in a sea of black, guided only by their instruments and their determination. On the second day, they entered a dense nebula that their sensors could barely penetrate. The clouds of gas and dust swirled around them in colors of purple and red, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Worked constantly at her station, trying to chart a safe path through the chaos. Guided the ship with careful precision, avoiding pockets of radiation and gravitational anomalies that could tear them apart. And then finally they saw it. The structure emerged from the nebula like a mountain rising from fog. It was built into an asteroid that must have been several kilometers across, with towers and domes and platforms that spread across the surface like a city. Lights glowed in windows and along walkways, the first signs of power they had seen since entering the zone. And floating around the asteroid, arranged in a neat formation, were 7 ships. 7 old ships with designs that Laura recognized from history books. 7 colony vessels that had left Earth 300 years ago and never arrived at their destinations. 7 ships that everyone had given up for lost. "They are here," whispered. "They are really here." The communication screen flickered and a new voice came through. It was an old woman's voice, tired but strong. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. Are you human?" Laura stood up and faced the screen. "This is Captain Laura of the Starward Hope, representing the Human Federation. Yes, we are human. We received a distress signal and came to investigate. We have been looking for you for 300 years." There was a long pause. When the voice spoke again, it carried something that might have been relief or might have been sorrow. "Welcome home, Captain. We have been waiting for you. Please dock at Platform 7. We have much to discuss." The Starward Hope moved slowly toward the asteroid station, passing the ancient colony ships that hung in space like sleeping giants. Laura looked at them and thought about all the generations that must have lived and died on this station, all the children who had been born in the Forbidden Zone, all the people who had never seen Earth or known that humanity had spread across the stars. They had found the lost colonists, but as she watched the station grow larger Laura had a feeling that their discovery was only the beginning. The message had spoken of a gate. The colonists had stayed hidden for 300 years. There was a reason they were here, a secret they had been guarding. And Laura was about to learn what it was. The docking clamps locked onto the Starward Hope with a heavy clunk, and the airlock doors began to cycle. Laura straightened her uniform and prepared to meet the ancestors who had been waiting in the dark for so long. Behind her, her crew gathered, ready to follow her into the unknown. The doors opened, and light flooded in from the station beyond. Standing in the airlock was a group of people in simple gray clothing, led by an old woman with white hair and kind eyes that held centuries of secrets. She smiled at Laura, and the smile was warm but also sad. "I am Elder Ruth Owens," the woman said. "Welcome to Haven Station. We have protected this place for 300 years, and now, at last, we can tell someone why." Ruth Owens led them through corridors that mixed old human technology with something far more ancient. The walls were metal plates from the colony ships, but behind them, Laura could see structures made of a dark material that seemed to absorb light. The colonists they passed looked healthy and strong, dressed in simple clothing and watching the newcomers with curious eyes. Children peeked around corners, whispering to each other about the strangers from the stars. The elder brought them to a large meeting room with windows that looked out over the asteroid's surface. In the distance, Laura could see a massive structure rising from the rock, a ring of the same dark material that stood hundreds of meters tall. It pulsed with faint light, like a heartbeat. "The gate," Ruth said, following Laura's gaze. "That is why we are here. That is what we have been protecting." She gestured for everyone to sit, and the crew of the Starward Hope gathered around a long table. Ruth sat across from Laura, and a young man with dark hair and serious eyes sat beside her. Ruth introduced him as Adam Cole, the station's chief scientist. He had been studying the gate his entire life, just as his parents had before him. 300 years ago," Ruth began, "our colony ships were traveling through hyperspace when something pulled us off course. We did not understand what was happening at the time. Our navigation systems went crazy, and when we finally dropped back into normal space, we were here in this nebula right in front of that ring." Adam leaned forward. "The gate is not a natural structure. It was built by a species that existed millions of years before any of the current galactic civilizations. We call them the architects. They were incredibly advanced, capable of manipulating energy and matter in ways we still do not fully understand." "What does the gate do?" Daniel asked. Ruth and Adam exchanged a look. It was the kind of look that people share when they are about to reveal something terrible. "The gate is a weapon," Ruth said quietly. "The most powerful weapon ever created. It can collapse stars." The room went silent. Laura felt her heart beating faster as she tried to understand what she was hearing. A weapon that could destroy stars. A weapon that could wipe out entire solar systems with everything living in them. Adam pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy. The architects built a network of these gates across the galaxy. They use them to wage war against their enemies. When a gate is activated and locked onto a target star, it creates a cascade reaction in the star's core. The star collapses, then explodes. Everything within that system is destroyed. The architects used this weapon against each other, Ruth continued. Their war lasted for thousands of years. In the end, they destroyed themselves. Their civilization is gone, and all that remains are these gates, scattered across the galaxy like unexploded bombs. Had been listening with growing horror. The energy field that drains ships, she said. You created that, did you not? Ruth nodded. When our ancestors discovered what the gate could do, they made a choice. They decided that no one should ever use this weapon again. So they built the field to keep others away. Any ship that enters the forbidden zone loses power. Only humans know the safe paths through, and we have guarded them for 300 years. Laura stood up and walked to the window, staring at the gate. It looked almost peaceful now, just a ring of dark metal pulsing with soft light. But she knew what it really was. It was death, sleeping in the darkness, waiting for someone to wake it up. Why did you not destroy it? She asked. We cannot, Adam said. We tried in the early days. The gate is protected by systems we do not understand. Any attempt to damage it causes it to activate its defenses. 3 of our ships were lost before we gave up. He paused. And there is another reason. The knowledge stored in the gate is incredible. We have learned so much from studying it. Medicine, energy production, materials, science. Everything that keeps this station running comes from what we learned. Destroying that knowledge felt wrong. So you have been sitting here for 300 years, Daniel said, guarding a weapon that could destroy the galaxy, hoping no one would ever find you. Yes, Ruth said simply. That has been our purpose, our burden. Every generation has taken the oath to protect the gate and to keep it secret from the rest of the galaxy. Tyler spoke up from the corner where he had been listening quietly. The distress signal we followed. Was that you? Ruth shook her head. No, we do not know where that signal came from. We detected it too, but it was not from our systems. We thought perhaps it was an echo from one of the dead ships in the zone. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Adam rushed to a console and his face went pale. Multiple ships entering the forbidden zone. They are following our safe path. They know how to get through the energy field. Laura ran to the window and looked up. She could see them now, lights in the darkness coming closer. The shapes became clear as they approached. Ships, sleek and silver, and behind them, massive and bristling with weapons, were the black warships of the hegemony of. Ruth gripped Laura's arm. How did they find us? How did they know? Laura thought back to their conversation with Ambassador, to the way he had warned them so urgently, to the fear in his voice. They had been watching. They had tracked the starward hope through the zone, recorded its path, and then shared that information with the. Maybe they had been forced to. Maybe they had been paid. It did not matter now. They know about the gate, Laura said. They know what it can do. On the console, a transmission was coming through. Adam opened the channel, and a harsh voice filled the room. It was speaking the common galactic language, and the tone was arrogant and demanding. Attention, human station. This is Warlord Vex of the hegemony of. We know what you are hiding. You will surrender the gate to us immediately, or we will take it by force. You have 1 hour to comply. The transmission ended. Ruth looked at Laura with eyes that held 3 centuries of fear finally coming true. They want to use it, Ruth whispered. They want to use the weapon. Laura looked at the approaching fleet, then at the gate pulsing in the distance, then at her crew who were watching her and waiting for orders. She had come here to find lost humans and bring them home. Instead, she had found the most dangerous secret in the galaxy, and now she had to protect it from an empire that would burn the stars to get what it wanted. 1 hour, she said. Then we find out what humans are really made of. The hour passed too quickly. Laura spent it in the station's command center with Ruth, Adam, and her crew, watching the fleet take up positions around Haven Station. There were 12 warships in total, each one carrying enough firepower to reduce the station to dust. The ships hung back near the edge of the nebula, watching but not participating. A private transmission had come through from Ambassador 20 minutes ago. His voice had been thick with shame. Captain, I am sorry. Warlord Vex threatened to destroy 3 of our colony worlds if we did not reveal your path through the zone. We had no choice. Please understand. Laura had not responded. She understood the position they had been in, but understanding did not make the situation any better. Daniel stood beside her, studying the tactical display. We cannot fight them. The Starward Hope has weapons, but nothing that could stand against 12 warships, and the colony ships have been sitting here for 300 years. Their systems are not designed for combat. We have the energy field, Ruth said. We could activate it at full power. It would drain every ship in the sector, including ours. Then what? Daniel asked. We would all be stranded here together. They would just wait until their ground troops could board the station and take the gate by force. Adam had been working at his console the entire hour, searching through ancient records for anything that might help. Now he looked up with an expression that mixed hope and fear. There might be another way. I found something in the architect databases. The gate can be destroyed. Everyone turned to look at him. Ruth's face went pale. I thought you said it was protected, Laura said. It is protected from external attacks, Adam explained. But there is a self-destruct sequence built into the system. The architects must have included it as in case a gate fell into enemy hands. If we activate the sequence, the gate will collapse in on itself. What happens when it collapses? Asked. Adam hesitated. The energy release would be massive. It would destroy the station and everything within several thousand kilometers, but the weapon would be gone forever. Ruth stood up and walked away from the group. Her shoulders were shaking. Laura realized that she was crying. For 300 years, Ruth's people had dedicated their lives to protecting this secret. They had built a home here, raised families, created a whole society around the duty of guarding the gate. And now she was being asked to destroy everything they had worked for. There must be another option, Ruth said without turning around. We cannot just throw away 3 centuries of sacrifice. Ruth, Laura said gently, if they get control of that weapon, they will use it. They will burn every star that does not bow to them. Billions of people will die. Whole civilizations will be wiped out. Is protecting this station worth that? Before Ruth could answer, Tyler called out from the communication station. Captain, Warlord Vex is transmitting again. He wants an answer. Laura looked at the clock. The hour was up. She nodded to Tyler and the commander's face appeared on the main screen. Vex was a large creature covered in dark scales, with 4 arms and a mouth full of sharp teeth. His eyes were cold and hungry, the eyes of someone who had never been anything he wanted. Your time is finished, humans, Vex said. Have you decided to be reasonable? Laura stepped forward. Warlord Vex, I need to show you something before you make your next move. The weapon you want is not what you think it is. Vex laughed, a harsh sound like metal scraping against stone. I know exactly what it is. A star killer. The ultimate weapon. With it, the hegemony will finally crush all who oppose us. The architects thought the same thing, Laura said. They used these weapons against each other for thousands of years. Do you know what happened to them? They are gone, Vex said dismissively. They were weak. They destroyed themselves, every single one of them. The gates are connected, Warlord. When one is used as a weapon, it makes all the others vulnerable. The architects learned this lesson too late. Their enemies captured gates and used them against the architect. In the end, no one survived. Vex's eyes narrowed. You are lying. You are trying to trick me into leaving. I'm not lying, but I do not expect you to believe me just because I say so. Laura took a deep breath. This was the moment she had been building toward, the only plan that might work. Let me show you. Let me take a small team through the gate. You can send observers if you want. See what is on the other side. See what happened to the species that created this weapon. Then decide if you still want to use it. The command center went silent. Ruth stared at Laura in shock. Daniel grabbed her arm and pulled her aside. Laura, what are you doing? He whispered urgently. We do not know what is on the other side of that gate. You could be walking into a trap. I know, Laura said. But right now, Vex thinks he is about to get the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. He is not going to walk away from that. The only way to change his mind is to show him the truth. And if the truth does not change his mind. Laura looked at the gate on the display screen, pulsing with its steady rhythm. Then at least we will have tried. That is all any of us can do. She turned back to the main screen where Vex was waiting impatiently. Well, Warlord, will you let me show you what your prize really costs? Vex was silent for a long moment. Laura could see him thinking, calculating, trying to figure out the angle. Finally, he nodded slowly. Very well, human, you may go through the gate. I will send one of my officers to observe. But if this is a trick, if you try to escape or deceive me, I will destroy your station and everyone in it. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Laura said. The transmission ended. Laura turned to her crew and saw fear in their eyes, but also trust. They believed in her, even when she was asking them to follow her into the unknown. "Tyler, you are with me," she said. "We are going to see what is on the other side of that gate, and we are going to bring back proof that some doors should never be opened." Ruth stepped forward and took Laura's hands. "Be careful, Captain. The records say the gate leads to a place called the Far Shore. Our ancestors never went through. They were too afraid of what they might find." Laura squeezed Ruth's hands and gave her a small smile. "Then it is time someone found out." The gate hummed with power as Laura and Tyler approached in a small shuttle. Behind them came a vessel-carrying officer, the observer that Warlord Vex had sent to watch everything they did. The dark ring grew larger in there until it filled the entire view, a circle of ancient metal that held secrets millions of years old. Activating the gate, Adam's voice came through the communication system. He was controlling the process from the station. "The destination is locked. Good luck, Captain." The center of the ring began to glow with blue light that swirled and twisted like water going down a drain. Laura gripped the controls tightly as the shuttle moved forward into the light. There was a moment of intense pressure, like being squeezed from all sides, and then everything went white. When Laura's vision cleared, she found herself looking at something that made her heart stop. They were floating in space above a dead world. The planet below them was gray and cracked, its surface covered with the ruins of cities that stretched from horizon to horizon. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the star. The sun in this system was dark, not dim, not fading, but completely dark. It hung in the sky like a black hole, giving off no light, no heat, nothing. The only illumination came from the shuttle's own lights and the distant glow of galaxies far away. "The star was collapsed," whispered, staring at her instruments. "Someone used the gate weapon on this system millions of years ago. The star died, and everything in the system died with it." Tyler was pale as he looked out the window at the ruined planet. "Those cities down there, how many people lived here?" "Billions," said. "Maybe tens of billions. This was a thriving civilization, and it was wiped out in an instant." The shuttle had come through behind them. Officer's voice came through the communication channel, and for the first time his arrogant tone was gone. "What is this place?" Laura guided her shuttle lower, toward the planet's surface. "This is what the gate does, officer. This is what your warlord wants to use against his enemies." They descended through the dead atmosphere and landed near what had once been a great city. The buildings were strange and beautiful, designed by minds that thought very differently from humans. But they were all broken now, shattered by the force of their star's death. The streets were empty, covered in dust that had been settling for millions of years. Found what they were looking for in what had once been a government building. The records were stored in crystals that still held their data after all this time. She connected her equipment and began downloading everything she could find. "This was the architect," she said as she worked. "They built the first gate here. They thought they were creating the ultimate defense, a weapon so powerful that no one would ever dare attack them." The records told a terrible story. The architects had been at war with another species for centuries. When they created the gate network, they believed they had won. They used the gates to collapse the stars of their enemies, destroying world after world. But their enemies were not defeated. They captured gates of their own and turned the weapon against the architects. "The gates are connected," explained. "When you use one as a weapon, it creates a feedback loop through the entire network. Every gate becomes a weak point. The architects and their enemies spent years collapsing each other's stars until there was nothing left. Both civilizations were completely destroyed." Tyler found something else in the records, a final message from the last architect leader. He played it, and a holographic image appeared, showing a tall being with too many limbs and eyes that glowed with the same light as the gates. The being spoke in a language that the translator struggled to understand, but the meaning was clear. "We were fools. We built a weapon to end all wars, and it ended all of us instead. If you are watching this, if you have found our gates, learn from our mistake. Do not use the weapon. Do not think you can control it. The gates remember every target. They are connected across space and time. Use one and you make yourself vulnerable to all. This is our legacy. This is our warning. Be wiser than we were." The hologram faded. The room was silent except for the sound of wind blowing through broken windows. Officer stood frozen, his 4 arms hanging at his sides. His scales had gone pale, and his eyes were wide with something that might have been fear or might have been understanding. "If we use the gate against our enemies," he said slowly, "they could capture other gates and use them against us." "Yes," Laura said, "and there are gates scattered all across the galaxy. No one knows how many. No one knows where they all are. If the hegemony starts a gate war, you will be destroyed just like the architects were." They returned to the shuttle and flew back through the gate. Laura recorded everything they had found, every piece of evidence, every warning from the ancient records. When they emerged on the other side, she immediately broadcast the information to the fleet and to the ships waiting at the edge of the nebula. Warlord Vex watched the recordings in silence. Laura could see him on the communication screen, his expression changing as he understood what he was looking at. When the final message from the architect leader played, Vex closed his eyes. "You have made your point, human," he said at last. His voice was quiet, almost defeated. "The hegemony will withdraw. This weapon is too dangerous for anyone to use." The ships turned and began moving away from the station. Laura watched them go with relief flooding through her body. They had done it. They had stopped a war before it started. But the story was not over. Ruth activated the station's long-range transmitter and sent the recordings to the Galactic Council, to every species that had ever wondered what was in the Forbidden Zone. The secret that humanity had guarded for 300 years was finally revealed to the galaxy. The Council's response came within days. They declared the zone a protected region under joint human authority. The colonists of Haven Station were recognized as heroes who had saved countless lives by keeping the gate hidden. Ships came from all over the galaxy to honor them, and for the first time in 3 centuries, the colonists were able to leave their hidden home and see the stars. Laura stood on the observation deck of the Starward Hope, watching as colony ships prepared to depart for Earth. Ruth had decided to stay at Haven Station with those who wanted to continue their watch, but many of the colonists were eager to see the worlds their ancestors had left behind so long ago. Daniel joined her at the window. "What are you thinking about, Captain?" Laura smiled. "I am thinking about all the other gates out there, all the other secrets waiting to be found. We stopped one war today, but the galaxy is full of dangers we have not discovered yet." "True," Daniel said, "but now they know about us. They know that humans found the most dangerous weapon ever built and chose to protect everyone from it. That has to count for something." Laura nodded. It did count for something. When the galaxy looked at humanity now, they would not see primitive newcomers stumbling through the stars. They would see guardians, protectors, a species that could be trusted with the darkest secrets and the heaviest burdens. The Starward Hope turned toward home, leaving the Forbidden Zone behind. But Laura knew they would be back. There were more mysteries to solve, more gates to find, more ancestors to protect. The galaxy had changed because of what they discovered here. And humanity was just getting started.